guess the first thing that I do is buying the fleece. The fleece I have bought all comes from Walmart, and it's the fleece that's $2.94 a yard. You don't really want the fleece that's $3.94 or $4.94 because it's too heavy and too thick. And an example of the heavy fleece is this right here. I'll pass it around. If you have a very thin wool sweater or thinner piece of wool, you know, you might be able to get by with a thicker liner, but I just don't care to use them. I use this, and this is the $2.94. So you can feel the difference in the weight. So get the cheap stuff. And I don't know, they quit selling it. They run out of it about this time, first part of April, and then they don't get it back in stock until about September, October. So I ran around all over in Sioux Falls and Sioux City trying to find felt at Walmart, and they were just out of it. So I would suggest that would be ASAP to get some polar fleece. Okay, so what I do. Yeah. And you know, I was there, and they don't have a lot of cool colors left, but it doesn't really matter what the liners look like because they're inside. And I needed to get over that hang-up. I mean, this is a black liner. There's some black in it. I guess this is a pale pink, but there was some pink in it. And that one, what color is that? Orange, yeah, and there was some orange in it. And actually, I ran out of orange, so way up in here, it's hot pink at the top, but nobody sees it, so. So when we get done passing that around, I'm going to kind of show you, are any of you ladies sewers? Okay. When I was in high school, I sewed a lot of my own clothes. And this goes against the grain of what you're taught when you're laying out patterns. So I'm going to show you that you take your fleece, and you know, this doesn't have to be very precise because it's a liner. So I fold my fabric over like this so that I can cut 2 pairs out at a time. And I lay my patterns this direction instead of going this way. And I've tried both ways, but this way works better because after you have it cut out and you sew this together and you can put this liner on your hand, there's stretch and you can pull it and then you can cut off what you don't want. Whereas if it's the other direction, the stretch goes this way and you don't want the stretch that way. So that was a little tidbit. So I'm just going to quickly lay this on. And you can see I'm not real precise. This pattern that you have, there's an extension onto the back of the mitten. On part number 3, you see that I've made it longer because the way it was too short. And then number 2 pattern also has the extension on because that's the front side, the bottom. So if you make copies of that, make sure you make it at least that long. You could even make it longer if you wanted to. But now, I just take my scissors and away I go. I mean, it's and I don't make it bigger than the pattern unless you have somebody that maybe has a really big hand. But every pair of mittens, no 2 are probably alike in sweater and size. Just the fit around the cuff, everyone's different, and you're going to laugh at how I show you how I do my cuffs. I haven't figured out a great way to do that yet. Some fabric stretches more, so just by looking at this one, this cuff is wider. The other one is narrower. So I just, whatever feels right, I guess, is how I do it.
Are you putting a 1/4 inch around or just exactly what your pattern is?
Cutting, you mean?
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to do just exactly what my pattern is. I might have a little bit of extra. And I take about a 1/4 inch seam when I do my sewing. I don't leave a lot of extra. And how many pairs of liners can you get out of a yard of fabric? I think I figured about 6 pairs of liners. So if the fabric's $3 a yard, you're spending about 50 cents a liner. Okay, voila, there we go. Now, all I do is I take these apart, and I found that the smart thing to do, there's little notches in this pattern. And these notches are where I put pins, because this is going to help me know how far I go when I sew around the thumb. So I take my pins and mark all 4 pieces of fabric. And again, the pins fall out. And so what I do is I usually make, maybe 20 pairs of liners at a time and put all the pins in so that when I'm ready to sew, they're already pinned and ready to go. I used to not do that. And so then after I took the pattern off, I had to put the pattern back on, put the pins in, and it just took longer. So now I have the bottom part, and then number 1 has the same notches, and so you have to pin on both sides of this piece. And I think the video shows where they cut a notch in the fabric. I don't know, that just wasn't going to work for me, but you know, if you're doing that and that's something you want to do, it'd be a lot faster. Okay, so then I usually take them off and I just stack them up. There's my front, and then I pull this off. And there's my back. Okay, so here's my liners. This is my set of liners. All right, now I went ahead and sewed this item number 1 and 2 together. And I'll show you how I did that, because you can get 2 right-hand mittens or 2 left-hand mittens very easily if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. This is the wrong side. I'll pass it around so you can kind of see how it's done, if you need to make notes for yourself or whatever, and then I will sew up this red pair here so you can kind of see the process. I've had a couple friends over and said, hey, come on and sew mittens. Why don't you sew mittens with me? So they came and they were all excited and they're watching me and they're going, I couldn't get them convinced. So, okay. So everybody okay with the fleece part, and knowing which way to cut that out. All right. Actually, I'm not going to sew red ones. I have black. I think I'll sew, I'll sew blue. Okay, now the liners are sewn the same exact way as the mittens are. So I like to start with the liners because when I was learning, nobody's going to see all my mistakes inside. And so I practiced and practiced with the liners, and then I started cutting out the sweaters. Okay, now this is, you're going to laugh at me because I have to sit down and I have to lay it on my knees to do this because I can never remember how it goes. I flip it over this way, and then I flip that one over this way, or just move it over, and this one over this way. Okay, so you got them opposite, or if you know, like this, whatever. But just make sure you don't have.
Going the same.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. You gotta, you guys can. So then I just sit down and I sew from pin to pin around the thumb, and I take about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And around the end of the thumb, I am not picky. I don't make sure that I get all the way up to the end of the thumb, because how many people have an extra long thumb? And it's nice to have that extra up there, because you can just zip around the top of the thumb, and I maybe have a 1/2 inch, maybe more than that around at the top, and then I cut that off real close to the seam. So what's going around, you're not going to see. So I'll just pass this around. You can see I wasn't very precise. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut that so that we don't have that excess seam allowance inside to make it kind of bulky. And they're probably not matched up evenly in the back, you know, because you're going to. So there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to open them up. I'll just take this one here. And I trim very close around the thumb, because that's where you get some bulkiness, and you don't want that bulkiness inside the thumb. And then I open it up and I flip it around this way. Take my pins out. And then I take one of the backs and I put the back, this is laying like this, and I put this back like this.
With the thumb on the inside.
The thumb on the inside, yep. So I pushed my thumb through. And this was the hardest part for me. I don't know, it just, so you sew, and somebody said, well, why would you push your thumb through? So, because you're not going to do it later. And you just have to. You just have to push your thumb through. And then I'm going to put these two together, and I'm going to sew my back on. And I start at the top of the mitten in the center, and the reason for that is because I don't want to go all the way around from one end to the other because of the stretch. And so I go all the way around. And then when I do the other side, I flip it over, but I reinforce the top up here. Okay, so, and then I go around, because that's where your fingers start to poke through.